QuadQuiz!
Brought to you by Math with Sir Lester. There are 3 questions for this video, and you are to answer them in 15 seconds each. Are you ready? In 3, 2, 1. For this given quadratic equation, which coefficient is not present? Is it A, B, or C? And it's coefficient B. With this, aside from the quadratic formula, which of these 3 methods is easiest to be used in solving the roots of this equation? Without B, we can use extracting by square roots. And with that, what are the roots of this given quadratic equation? The roots are 3i and negative 3i. Did you get 3 over 3? If not, please continue viewing this video. Don't worry about the presence of I in the presented roots because we are going to discuss it as well in this video. But first, let's consider the correct step that we are going to use here. Earlier, we have 3 different steps. Now again, we have the quadratic formula to which all other considerations can be solved using that said formula. But for this, and since we already know that it's the B coefficient that is not around, because A is 1 and the 9 there is your constant. That's your constant. And your B is not around or 0, we can use a method which is easier than the quadratic formula. And that method is only possible when B is 0 or B is not around. It's by extracting square roots. Again, this is only possible if B is not around or if B is 0, because this is what we're going to do with this. We have x squared plus 9 equal to 0. We're going to move this constant here on this side. You will have x squared is equal to negative 9. After this, we can apply square roots. But here comes the I. I'm just going to insert it here and discuss it later. If we're going to take the square root of a negative number, of course it's an imaginary. But for representations only, let us try to come up with the representation for an imaginary number. It will be part of the discussion here. Once you take the square root of x squared, you will have x, because the roots are also known as the values of x which can make the equation true. And this is equal to the square root of that. But it should not be forgotten that whenever you take the root or the square root of a number, you are going to consider the presence of both positive and negative values of this. The reason for that is because if we're going to take the square of, let's say, negative 5 and 5, they will end up with the same result of 25. That would mean 25, being the perfect square, can be solved or can be taken from the result of taking the square of both 5 and negative 5. That's why we have positive and negative notation here. But of course, again, as mentioned, you cannot get a square root of a negative number. So let's represent like this. You have x is equal to plus minus the square root of 9 times negative 1. Just to simplify the 9. Therefore, your x is both positive and negative. Square root of 9 is 3 times the square root of negative 1. And that square root of -1 representation for an imaginary number is denoted as I. Okay? But of course, you can, if the question or the concern is what are the real roots, then you could just automatically say there are no real roots from this one here. But since there's no declaration as to the roots we're looking for are real only, or does it include imaginary, so let's have this. Therefore, the first root is the positive 3i, and the second root is the negative of 3i. This is why these are the answers earlier. Bottom line, our goal here is to come up with the roots, and we use a specific method when b is equal to 0, and that's by extracting square roots. This is the discussion for this QuadQuiz. Subscribe now!